strong legs, a tight torso and powerful arms. As a rower, your physiology must be strong and you have to resist pain and doubts. Henning Bay Nielsen, official FISA medical doctor, will explain why rowers also have a big heart.
First of all, the typical for a rower's body is that the maximal oxygen uptake, the amount of oxygen that a rower can consume per minute, is among the highest of the sports we know participates in the Olympic Games. The rowers need to contract their muscle in each stroke, and after each stroke they have a relaxation phase. And during the stroke, all the muscles are contracted, and that means that the muscle or the heart needs to pump against a high resistance. When a muscle needs to work hard, then the muscle gets bigger. And the unique thing about the heart muscle in rowers is that not only the muscle wall in the heart gets thicker, but also the volume within the heart gets bigger. So that's rather unique for rowers. They have a big, thick heart muscle, but also the volume within the heart is very big. It's kind of extreme kind of physiology that the body adapts to a high workload, and therefore also the heart muscle and the blood volume, the capacity of muscles will come into a state that will be able to pump a lot of blood each minute.
If we compare an elite rower with common people, another figure is quite impressive. While a normal adult's got a heart rate of about 60 to 80, a world-class rower shows just half of it.
The lowest I've ever seen, I've worn one during sleep when I've been sleeping a few times, and I've seen 33, I think is the lowest ever. But waking, the lowest is probably about 38. I don't know what the average is, I think it's between the 60s, isn't it? So yeah, but then that's, I don't think my heart rate's abnormal for an elite athlete. My maximum heart rate that I've seen in the last couple of years is about 197. When I was at school, I remember seeing about 10 beats higher than that, but then that's what heart rate does. Your max heart rate decreases as you get older. So actually, I think 197 it's almost exactly what you'd expect with the popular formula of 220 minus your age, given that I'm 24. I imagine all rowers really hate rowing when it's hammering it down with rain and wind in the winter and it's early mornings. And sometimes there are times when I can't even remember liking rowing, but it's after racing and it's when sessions go well and it's looking back on it. It's very much something I like having done in a way more than doing a lot of the time.
Even if it's hard and cruel, rowing is not a men's world.
So I think more and more being strong and being fit and being confident and going out there and battling the elements is, I think more and more that's becoming something that girls and women are just embracing.
Every rower has to make decisions and keep going even if there is pain, but it's not that you love the pain, it's more that you make your decision and you go.
If you want me to tell how pretty or how tall or whatever, it doesn't matter. I've got the small ones and the big ones, and I say they're perfect because they can race.
Countless hours on an ergometer or on the water make the rowers real models of an athlete. Rowing is a sport which demands the whole body, and which is building up a capable cardiovascular system, is worldwide seen as one of the most efficient sports for health and fitness.
It's not that you love the pain. It's more that you make your decision and you go.
So normally when you're in the starting blocks, they call 2 minutes to go and then 1 minute to go, and sometimes that minute can feel like a really long time. You're sitting there just looking at the person in front of you, concentrating on your breathing, concentrating on what you want the first stroke to feel like, but it can feel like a really long time sitting in the blocks, sometimes feeling nervous and your heart's beating really fast and you just want to start. You want to get out of the blocks as in good shape, and in rowing it's a big advantage to get out quickly so that you can see your opposition, but at the same time you don't want to be just spinning the wheels and churning. You want to get into a good strong mid-race rhythm, probably sort of through the 500 to 750 metres mark. So it's a matter of getting out of the box quickly but then relaxing into a good rhythm through the middle of the race.
Well, it depends on the boat classes, but in quad we do about 250 meters, about 30 strokes, and after that we'll go to the racing speed. But it depends, of course, how the other boats do. Usually it's 25-30 strokes, but maybe in Olympics final it's going to go 40 strokes. We don't know that. About 50-60 strokes. After that you're going to feel the pain because of lactate in your blood, and then you're going to feel it and you have to deal with it. If you are a top athlete, you know that you have to do about 150 strokes more, then you have to stay some average speed and stroke rate.
The pain is kind of strange because the pain attacks you, so you have to be prepared. So either you can let the pain get you, or you are prepared to do what am I going to do when it comes, because it will come. It's not like maybe the mail comes today or not. It's the pain is going to come to you, and you know exactly where it's going to come. So you need to plan what am I going to do when it comes. When it started really hurt, just keep on doing what you're doing. Just 10 more strokes. Just keep up. Then you will go a little bit away, and then you can keep on racing. So you'll hit the maximum pain after like 400 or 500 meters after the start. 400 you will really feel it. So you have a choice. Keep the speed going or get a little bit down and see if you can rest. Then you're done. Then you're off the race. So you have to go through that phase. You'll hit the top 400 meters. Then you try to take your lactate down, even if you're racing for full. And then going through 1000 meters, you will start to race again. And from 1000 meters in, it's just going to keep moving upwards.
I suppose during the race the pain kind of kicks in maybe about 1100 meters into the race, but what I like to try and do usually is maybe take it a bit easier off the start so that it kind of takes a bit longer before the pain kicks in, but then it's just all in the legs really that you feel burning, and you just keep pushing through, and then towards the final sprint, then the last 200 meters, it's kind of your whole body is taking over and you're struggling to breathe, and you're just keep pushing yourself and just throwing yourself up and down and pulling and hauling and dragging and everything you can do with the oar handle to just keep the boat moving across the line, and then you're across the line and you can hardly see or breathe or feel your legs or anything, but it's great crack all the same. I think a bit of ignorance really and just a bit of brute force kind of gets us through it. A kind of funny story, when we were starting out rowing and when we were going racing first, our coach never told us about this lactic acid thing. He said he didn't want us to know about it, to be worrying about it. So for years we didn't know about it, that you'd build up this lactic acid, and it was really painful, and he was just telling us that our technique was going bad and that's why we was feeling wrong. And we eventually found out about it and realised that he was lying to us. But I suppose after kind of doing that for all those years, we didn't take much notice of the pain when we were racing.
So a typical Australian team male rower would eat a phenomenal amount of food in a day. It's really rather impressive. They would start off with a breakfast before training, and that might be a bowl of cereal or toast. They'd go out on the water for their first session and typically take something to eat and drink out on the water too, so muesli bars, bananas, those kind of things are pretty popular. When they come back, they'd have second breakfast, and that might be eggs on toast, so a more substantial breakfast with some protein in it. Second training session and then a snack afterwards. A full lunch. The recovery snack for the afternoon is usually pretty important, so milk-based drinks, yogurts, those kind of things. Some of the heavyweight men will have like 3 litres of milk in a day to supplement their food intake. Dinner, it would again be like 1 or 2 plates of food with some dessert, and then a bit later on second dinner and then probably supper. So we're looking at something like 25,000 kilojoules up to 30,000 kilojoules a day, which actually can be quite a challenge for them to fit in at times. And most of the nutrition messaging for that group is how to eat more rather than trying to keep the fat content low or trying to reduce their body fat. It's all about trying to get enough fuel in for the training they're doing. For the women, women have naturally a little bit of a lower muscle mass, so the energy cost of the exercise for them is lower, so they don't expend as much doing the work they do. If you look like right at the top end, the girls are still eating a fairly substantial amount of food, maybe somewhere around 20,000 kilojoules, 18 to 20. Around hydration, if you're doing multiple sessions in the day, so our elite guys might do 6 hours of training. Even if they only sweat 1 litre of fluid for each of those hours that they're exercising, that's about 6 litres of fluid they need to replace over and above their normal hydration needs. When we talk about supplements, it's good to split them into categories because they're not all the same, they don't all have the same purpose. We talk about sports foods, so that's like sports drink and recovery powders and sports bars and those kind of things. Then we'd think about medical supplements, and there'd be things like taking an iron supplement if you know your iron status is low, or taking a calcium supplement if you know your intake is inadequate. And then the last category is the performance supplements, so that would be specifically taking something to give yourself a performance benefit. We follow a pretty rigid process for what we feel to be safe and that works. It's not a guarantee that if you take something you'll go faster. Actually, sometimes it goes the other way. For our younger athletes, the main thing that we want them to focus on is eating well and training hard, and they'll get the biggest performance benefit out of that over and above anything else. We would really recommend people go and have a look at the Informed Sport website, and that site has a list of products which have been batch tested or checked for contaminants, which just really increases your safety in that space.
The Olympic Regatta covers 14 events, which will happen in 6 different types of boats. One of the main attractions are the races in the single scull. Each rower has 2 oars, which is called sculling. But in rowing, some athletes row with just 1 oar each. This is called sweeping. The smallest of the sweep boats is the pair. Each athlete has just 1 oar and propels only one side of the boat. They have to pull the oar through the water at the same time to make the boat go straight. That brings us to the double sculls and the lightweight double sculls, where both rowers have an oar in each hand, as in any sculling event. Sculling is more symmetrical than sweep rowing. In the quadruple scull, each of the 4 rowers is equipped with 2 oars. A total of 8 oars means this is one of the fastest boats in the world of rowing. The heavy or the lightweight 4 has 4 athletes, each with 1 oar. This is another sweep boat. The famous 8 is the biggest boat and, in an Olympic regatta, the only coxed event. The coxswain is the only athlete facing forward in a rowing race. Each of the 8 rowers has only 1 oar. South Africa is an up-and-coming nation in rowing. Head coach Roger Barrow is in charge of all the athletes in all the boat classes. He gives us an overview.
Yeah, the sculling boats, each person has 2 oars, and then the sweep boats, each person has 1 oar, which I think is a bit more difficult doing the sweep oar because of the balance. On the sculling boats, their boats are a bit more stable. Yeah, I think when the boat has more oars, it will definitely be faster. So if you look at a quad, which has 4 people and 2 oars each, will be faster than 4 people with 1 oar each. And the same would be for a double scull compared to a pair, where there are 4 oars in the double scull with 2 people, and only 2 people with 2 oars in the pair, which the pair will be a little bit slower. So always the boats with more oars, in theory, should be faster.
But whom to put in which seat? Is this a crucial decision to improve the performance?
So when you look at a pair, you've got the stroke man, and that's the person furthest away from the bow. The bow is the part that goes over the finish line first, and the stroke man is the person who sets the rhythm and sets the tempo, as we call it, and the pace of the rhythm when they're executing the race. And often the person who sits in the bow, he has to follow, and he's often the person calling the tactics and the strategy of the race. I think often if you look at a Cox's 4, the person you put in the stroke seat is the man with the rhythm. How can they set the best tempo? Normally the 3 seats and the 2 seat are where you put the more powerful people because the boat is more stable and they can work a lot harder. And then the person who sits in the back in the bow seat is often the most dynamic and the best technical rower in the boat. And this also applies to a double or a quad, even in a pair, where you've got your technician, your rhythm makers in the front, and then the followers behind.
Quite comfortable with racing in the pair is the Dutch crew, Steeneman and Braas.
Well, I think in a pair, if you make a mistake, it costs you 5 strokes, and in an 8, if you make one false move in a stroke, you can get away with it and pick up in the rhythm a lot easier.
And in a pair, I think it's a little bit easier to if I say something, then Mitchell's the only one who can respond on it. And if I say something where there are 7 or 8 people, there are 8 people who can respond on that. So the setting is challenging, I think.
So every boat has its peculiarities, either sweep or sculling, either in a single or in one of the bigger boats. In the end, it's rowing and competing amongst the world's elite. But they all have one thing in common: human power. It takes about 6 minutes from the signal at the start to the horn at the finish line, which is 2,000 metres away. Rowing is an endurance sport, but with more than 200 strokes per race, there are multiple ways to win or lose. Greg Searle, 1992 Olympic champion and bronze medalist at the 2012 London Olympic Games, can tell us where the crucial moments of a race are.
So when you watch a rowing race, I think the important thing to recognise is these guys are in a lot of pain. So I think like any sport, when it's done well, it looks easy, but it isn't easy. The race usually lasts, say, about 6 minutes. For about the first 30 seconds, the athletes might feel comfortable. Once they get beyond that, the pain kicks in. I think the races are won and lost in the middle half of the race. You think that the important bit is getting off the start, and that's what you practice, and you see these glorious sprint finishes, but the real tough bit is going hard when you're a long way from anywhere. When you're in the Badlands, you're in the middle of nowhere, and you don't know whether you're going to make it till the end.
When we are watching a rowing regatta, there are some aspects we can focus on.
I'd say within rowing there's probably 3 things that make the boat go fast. One is, do you row a long stroke? So you move the boat a long way each stroke. The second thing is, do you pull hard? And if you pull hard, the boat will go further for each one of those strokes. The third element is, how many strokes do you do per minute? If you do more strokes, and they're still strong strokes, and they're still long strokes, the boat will go faster. The problem is sometimes you push one of these things on and the other one goes down. So the real art with rowing is to row long, to row strong, and then take more strokes, and then be efficient and be together so the boat keeps moving forwards.
Martin Cross, Olympic champion in 1984, has been to 4 Olympic Games as a commentator. He for sure is the best to teach us how to watch a race.
The deciding moments can happen right on the start line. There was the European Championships in 2016, and the sculler from Lithuania, Griskonis, he missed the start, and you could see him sat there, and he looked to his left and he looked to his right, and the other guys were off. And then he suddenly decided, I must go. So you can have drama on the start line. It's a very tense time of the race, and sometimes mistakes can happen, so it's worth keeping an eye there. You would think that, you know, maybe the leading boat at 500 would be the fastest boat in the race, but if you take a look at maybe the top 2 rowers in the world from New Zealand, Kiwi pair, you know, there are races that they row where they just may be in last position or maybe 1 length behind the leaders at 500 metres, and they have this amazing strategy where a lot of the boats go off fast and they slow down. They just keep going at the same speed. So while you might look at them and think maybe they're not having a great race at 500 metres, actually by the 1,000 metres they're in the front. So it's not always easy to tell. And I also think in, you know, with that thing of who's in the lead, there are examples in the smaller boats. And I'm thinking now of a great battle between Kim Crowe and Emma Twigg in the women's single sculls, I think in the Sydney World Cup. And Kim Crowe, the Australian, on her home water, she just went out so far from Emma Twigg. And you thought by 500 metres she would have an unbeatable lead, the distance was so great. But over the course of the race, the New Zealander caught her back, you know, and finally, so a lead at 500 metres doesn't always mean that much. If you want to see who's in the lead, there's a little tip there, because you maybe can't tell the rowers, but the coxswain you can tell. And so, because if the 8's in the lead, you just look for where the coxswain is, and that tells you which boat's in the front. So when you're looking at this great shot, I call it the money shot because it just shows rowing off fantastically. Take a look for where the coxswain is, and the furthest up coxswain, their boat's in the lead. When you're watching racing, the graphics that you get are really helpful. You get the speed that the boat's moving from the GPS data. You can also see the amount of strokes they do per minute, the rating we call it. And what's really useful there is you can tell that the crews maybe that are rating lower but going faster, they're probably using less energy. And quite often in rowing you'll see people put a lot of effort in, and sometimes that can make the stern of the boat bounce. So loads of effort, a lot of apparent speed, but it's going wasted effort. The crew that just are the best at going top speed but doing nothing to disturb the run of the boat are the Croatian men's double. And there's a shot of them going off, I think, 50 strokes a minute, which is sensational. And their boat is running just flat. So a great way to look at a race is just check what is the stern doing. Rowing's an exciting sport because, you know, you've got the water to manage, you've got to move in time with your crewmates. But when the conditions are rough, then, you know, that can be quite challenging. But even in the flattest conditions, you might lose your blade at any time. Rowers call that catching a crab. And it can happen at the most crucial of moments. So in the World Championship final of 2011, the German 3-man Lorenz Schuf, and I think he just looked and he just lost concentration. His blade caught the water, it spun out of his hand, it lost it, it stopped the boat, and the Australians came through to win. So the American women, I mean, they're just a phenomenal team, the women's A, and it puts me in mind of what they go through. There was a shot, I think it was in Egg-Ballette World Cup, and Caroline Lind, she was the world's #1 rower, she's got a face covered with sunscreen, and it was so painful for her in that race. They were trying to get through the Canadians, and just as they get through the Canadians, she lets out a scream. She really wants to push away, and it's a very dramatic moment, and rarely do you see expressions on the faces of rowers. Normally they just try to keep impassive, but there you see the passion and the pain and the power all in one shot. It's fantastic.